सा ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। 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 ॐ सा ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ सा ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ सा ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ सा ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ सा ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ सा ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ सा ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ सा ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ सा ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ सा ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ सा ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ सा ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ सा ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ सा ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ सा ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वप्रचोदयात्। 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 ॐ सा ईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वप्रचोदयात्।
Dear devotees, you are about to embark on the greatest journey of your life, a journey to the core of your inner being. Please, all in a low voice, follow the 𝐒𝐻𝐿 and let your mind reach a quietude of silence. All together, let us repeat the pranava. Please sit up straight, and in the quietness of your mind, hear the sound of your breathing. Breathe in and out, in, out. Now, open your eyes and see the light in front of you. This is the light of a candle. Gaze intently at the light. Now, feel the light shining in the center of your forehead. Now half close your eyes and feel the light in the center of your forehead. Now, let that light come down your neck to the center of your chest. Imagine a flower, a lotus, opening petal by petal to receive the light. Now the light is resting on the lotus. The lotus disappears, only the light remains. But it is no more the light of the candle. It is a round ball of formless light. It is a light of divinity within you. Feel this light now expand, and feel the light going down your body, into your legs, up to your feet. Feel warmth as the light surges through your limbs. And make this mental vow, O Lord, my legs, touched by the light of your divinity, will always take me only to places of goodness. Feel the light surging upwards, up into your chest, around your shoulders, and down into your arms and fingers. Feel the warmth as this light surges through you. Make this mental vow, O Lord, my arms, touched by the light of your divinity, will only yearn to do what is good. Now feel the light surging upwards into your neck and into your face, into your head, and the light now shines in your eyes. Make a vow. My eyes must yearn to see only what is good. Feel the light now shining in your ears. My ears must yearn to hear only what is good. Feel the light now shining on your lips. My lips must yearn to only speak what is good. Now, feel this light now shining into your whole body. The light illumines the body. In your mind, repeat the words, the light is in me. Now feel the light expand. Expand, and you are now sitting in a ball of light, in a cone of formless light. Let your mind say, the light is within me, I am in the light. Feel a thrill of this light, and now feel this light expanding and filling this entire room with a divine glow. And let this light now go beyond this room, beyond and beyond, spreading ever further to this whole country, and beyond this country, beyond oceans and beyond nations. Let this light flow ever outwards to encompass the whole world. Now, imagine yourself, not your physical body, but an inner being within you, like a gigantic divine form, sitting on the globe, and the light of your divinity, the light of your love, encompassing the whole world. Stay for a moment, thrilled in that thought. Now, bring into your mind's eye and send your light of love to all the creatures of the world, all the animals and insects, creatures that fly or crawl. All of them are God's creatures. Send your light of love now to those whom you dislike or whom you think dislike you. Send your love, send your light of love to them. The same Atma in you is also in them. Let them feel the radiance of your light. Let them feel the radiance of your love. Now, into your mind's eye, bring those you love, your spouse, children, relations, friends, whoever. Bathe them with the divine glow of your love. Feel oneness with the whole world. Feel at peace with yourself. And now, look inside you. Can you imagine? Do you see a ball of light within you? In this ball of light, bring in the form of the Ishtadeva, the divine being that you love and worship. See this form smiling within you. See this divine form raise his hands in blessing. You have shared your love with the world. Now, receive the blessing and darshan of the divine within. Stay for a moment, thrilled in this thought that you and he are one.
Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ श्रीभास्कराय विद्महे साईदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सूर्यः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ प्रेमात्मनाय विद्महे हिरण्यगर्भाय धीमहि तन्नः सत्यः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah, hayya ala salah. حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
आज्ञा भैया काल की, कभी चलायो बंद, सब सीखन को कब है, गुरु मानियो ग्रंथ, गुरु ग्रंथ जी मानियो, प्रगट पुराण की ने, जो प्रभु को मिल वो चाहे, खोज शब्द मिले, राज करेगा खालसा, आती रहे न कोई, वार हुए सब मिलेंगे, बचे शरण जो होए, वाहे गुरु नाम जहाँ रहे, चढ़े सो तेरे पार, जो शरदा कर सेव दे, गुरु पार उतारन हार, जो शरदा कर सेव दे, गुरु पार उतारन हार. बुद्धं शरणं गच्छामि, धर्मं शरणं गच्छामि, संघं शरणं गच्छामि. ॐ नमो अरिहन्ताय, ॐ नमो सिद्धाय, ॐ नमो आर्याय, ॐ नमो गजाय, नमो ये सब साधुर्णं, ये स्वपंच नमो कायो, सर्व पाप विनाशनो, मंगलानं च सर्वेषु, परमं भवयेमङ्गलम्.
धीनामभित्र्यवतु गणेशाय नमः, सरस्वत्यै नमः, श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः. हरिः ओम्. ॐ नमो भगवते रुद्राय ॐ नमस्ते रुद्रमन्यव उतोत ऋषभे नमः नमस्ते अस्तु धन्वने बाहुभ्यामुत ते नमः यात इषु शिवतमा शिवं बभूव ते धनुः शिवा शरव्या यातवतया नो रुद्रमृडया या ते रुद्रशिवा तनूरघोरा पापकाशिनी तया नस्तनुवा शन्तमया गिरिशन्ताभिचाकशीली यामिषुं गिरिशन्तहस्ते बिभर्ष्यस्तवे शिवान् गिरित्रतां कुरु माहि पुंसि पुरुषैं जगत् शिवेन वचसा त्वा गिरिशाच्चावधामसि यथा नः सर्वमिज्जगदयक्ष्मगुं सुमना असत अद्यवोचदधिवक्ता प्रथमो दैव्योऽभिषक् अहीगश्च सर्वा ऐञ्जम्भयन् सर्वा आश्रयातु धान्यः असौ यस्ताम्रो अरुण उत बभ्रुः सुमङ्गलः ये चेमागुं रुद्रा अभितो दिक्षु श्रिताः सहस्रशो वै शागुं हेड ईमहे असौ यो वसर्पति नीलग्रीवो विलोहितः उतैनं गोपा अदृशन्नदृशन्नुदहार्यः उतैनं विश्वा भूतानि सदृष्टो मृडयातिनः नमो अस्तु नीलग्रीवाय सहस्राक्षाय मीडुषे अतो ये अस्य सत्त्वानो हन्तेभ्यो करन्नमः प्रमुञ्च धन्वनस्त्वमुभयोराग्नियोर्जाम् याश्च ते हस्त इषवः पराता भगवो वपा अवतत्य धनुस्त्वगुं सहस्राक्षशतेषु धे निशीर्य शल्यानां मुखा शिवो नः सुमना भव विजन्धनुः कपर्दिनो विशल्यो बाणवागुम् उत अनेशन्नस्येषव आभुरस्य निषङ्गतिः याते हेतिर्मीडुष्टमहस्ते बभूव ते धनुः तयास्मान् विश्वतस्त्वमयक्ष्मया परिभुज नमस्ते अस्वायुधायानातताय धृष्णवे उभाभ्यामुत ते नमो बाहुभ्यां तव धन्वने परिते धन्वनो हेतिरस्मान् वृणक्तु विश्वतः अथो य इषुधिस्तवारे अस्मन्निदेहितम् नमस्ते अस्तु भगवन् विश्वेश्वराय महादेवाय त्र्यम्बकाय त्रिपुरान्तकाय त्रिकाग्निकालाय कालाग्निरुद्राय नीलकण्ठाय मृत्युञ्जयाय सर्वेश्वराय सदाशिवाय श्रीमन्महादेवाय नमः।
अत्रीणात्वा कृमे हन्मि कण्वेन जमदग्निना विश्वावसोर्ब्रह्मणा हतः कृमीणागुं राजा अप्येषागस्थपतिर्हतः अथो माताथो पिता अथो स्थूरा अथो क्षुद्राः अथो कृष्णा अथो श्वेताः अथो आशातिका हताः श्वेताभिः सह सर्वे हताः आहरावद्य श्रितस्य हविषो यथा तत्सत्यं यदमुय्यमस्य जम्भयोः आदधामि तथा हि तत् खण्फण्मृषि ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
जय जय गजानना Jai Gणनाथ साई गणनाथ
जय I offer my most loving pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet. I pray to Swami that he gives us all the understanding that it is Swami who speaks and it is Swami who listens through each one of us. Elders, sisters and brothers, Sairam to all of you. It gives me great pleasure to join you all today in trying to prepare and deliver this online talk to all of you. It has helped me connect to the Swami within, and I am grateful to the organizers for giving me this opportunity. We're talking about how do we connect to Swami, how do we plug into the source? An eternally relevant question, isn't it? In fact, even as I was thinking about the topic, it just occurred to me that when we were graduating, when we were completing our masters, we prayed to Swami for an audience. We wanted to have an exclusive time with Swami to express our gratitude and also to have a few moments that we would cherish for the rest of our lives, because we were leaving his physical presence. And very interestingly, I just remembered that the entire discourse that Swami delivered that day was on this theme of connecting to Swami, or how do we feel Swami's presence even after we move away from his physical presence. Much of what I'm going to be sharing today is what Swami told us on that day. It is very relevant even today, even for me, and I'm sure it is relevant to each one of you too. But we will come to that in the course of this talk. I'm sure most of you would be aware of this classic story from the Srimad Bhagavatam, probably one of the most popular ones, the story of 𝐒𝐤𝐽𝐺 Moksham. You had this elephant king who is caught by a crocodile when he goes to drink water in a pond. And then he calls out to the Lord, and the Lord comes running. I'm cutting short the whole story and just giving you the gist with the belief that most of you are familiar with the story. But the description of how the Lord responds to this call is very interesting and very beautifully captured by various poets and writers of the Bhagavatam. They say how Lord Vishnu gets up from his seat. He's playing a game of chess with Mother Lakshmi. But he gets up and he runs. He forgets to take his upper cloth. He forgets to take his weapon because he's going to protect a devotee. He might need that. He even forgets to call for Garuda, his vehicle. And that's how he rushes to protect 𝐒𝐤𝐽𝐺. Whenever you listen to the story, at least whenever I listen to the story, I wonder, how do you call Swami this way? How do you call him in such a way that he's ready to drop everything and come running to you? There is a beautiful Chinnakatha that Swami narrates in reference to this 𝐒𝐤𝐽𝐺 Moksham episode. There was a king. In his court, a Bhagavata, one who gives discourses on the Bhagavatam, was giving a recital, and he was talking about this very episode of 𝐒𝐤𝐽𝐺 Moksham. And listening to his narration, the king had a doubt. The king very humbly stopped the Bhagavata and asked him, I have a doubt. Will you be kind enough to answer this? Clear this doubt for me. And the king asked, this elephant called out and Lord Vishnu came running. It is said that the Lord resides in Vaikuntha or heaven. So my question is, what is the distance between earth and Vaikuntha? The Bhagavata was a bit tensed. He was taken aback by this question from the king. So he started flipping through his books, hoping that there would be some number, some reference which he could put in front of the king. But unfortunately, there was no way he could tell the king the exact distance between earth and Vaikuntha. The king turned to the other scholars in the court. Everyone put their head down. He turned to the wise ministers that were in his court, and nobody came forward to answer the king. The king was very disappointed. He said, this is such a simple question. I thought one of you would be able to help me with an answer. Swami narrates in the Chinnakatha that the servant who was standing behind the king and who was fanning the king, he came forward and said, "My Majesty, if you don't mind, can I tell you what I think is the answer?" The king was surprised, in this hall full of learned men and scholars, no one had the answer, but here is this humble servant who seems to be brave enough to come forward and give an answer. So he turned to his servant and he asked, "So what is it? What do you think is the answer?" And then the servant said, "Your Majesty, the elephant king called and Lord Vishnu came running. So it only means that the distance Vaikuntha is from heaven is just as far as an elephant's call can reach." A simple answer, but Swami would say in that lies the greatest truth. God is always just a call away. He is only as far as your call can reach. So then comes the question, should I shout? Should I scream? Should I sing on the top of my voice? Or should I use some device to call him? Should I use a loudspeaker? How loudly should I call him? I'm reminded of a very beautiful episode which was narrated to me by my teachers in college, must be. This happened in the Purnachandra auditorium. There was this music program which was in progress. Swami was seated in front in the D and he was watching this program, and many of you may be familiar with his name. The program was being done by P. Sushila and another great legendary singer, S. Janaki. And the piece that was being performed was by S. Janaki. Janaki Amma had one very interesting talent. Apart from being one of the sweetest singers you would ever hear, she also had this ability to mimic different voices. So she could sing like a small child, she could sing like an elderly lady, she could sing like a man, she could, of course, sing with her natural voice too. So she could sing in all these different tones. So she was presenting a song which was actually a story of a great devotee of Lord Venkateshwara. And this lady was old by that time that this event happens. She had this practice of making this pilgrimage to Tirupati every year, and every year she would walk up that Tirumala or the mountain. And that used to be her sadhana. She would walk up that mountain and have darshan of the Lord. With years, with advanced age, she couldn't do that trek anymore. People advised her against it, but she said, "No, this is a promise that I make to my Lord that I will come every year to see him." So she says, "I must go." So she takes this treacherous trek up the mountain, and midway she finds that she's not able to take a step forward. She's absolutely exhausted, and she's sitting by the wayside, unable to take even a step forward. And in that state, she starts crying and she says, "Oh, Lord Venkateshwara, I thought I'll come and see you, but here I am too old to make this journey." So this entire episode was being presented in the form of a song. So Janaki Amma would sing like an old lady. She would sing like the way the other pilgrims would come and try to help her, and all of this in song. The story goes that Lord Venkateshwara looks at this plight of this devotee, and he comes in the form of a little boy. And he comes to this lady and says, "Grandma, what are you trying to do? Where are you trying to go?" And then she says, "I want to go and have darshan of Venkateshwara." And the little boy says, "But you're too old for that." And the little boy tries to dissuade her by saying that, "Don't you know he's everywhere and you don't have to go anywhere to have his darshan?" And she says, "I know all that, but I would like to go and have darshan of Lord Venkateshwara, my Ishta Devata, my deity." So this little boy then helps this old lady to make that rest of the journey, and she eventually goes and has the darshan. I don't know the exact story. She eventually realizes that it's the same Lord whom she was worshipping and adoring and wanting to have the darshan of, who had come in the form of that little boy. In the crowd, deep in the crowd. You all have been to the Purnachandra Auditorium, or at least have had a glimpse of it. So right in the middle of the hall was seated this devotee of Swami, who was listening to these renderings, was watching this whole presentation, and in a devotional fervor, she closed her eyes and she said, "Swami, that lady called and you came. That elderly devotee called for you and you instantly came in the form of that little boy." And closing her eyes with tears brimming, she said, "Swami, I am calling you now. Will you come?" And all this she was speaking to herself. With closed eyes, with her mind's voice, she was saying, "Swami, I am calling you now. Will you come? I am calling you now. Will you come?" In the next few seconds, she found that there was a commotion around, and she looked around. Everybody was attentive and moving around, and she opened her eyes to realize that Swami had got up from his chair and Swami was walking around. And for those of you who've been in a situation like that, you know how wonderful it is, when suddenly Swami decides to give another round of darshan. Everyone's excited. Will Swami come this side? Will I be able to give my letter to Swami? So the restlessness around the hall, she was completely absorbed in what was happening there. And even as she was seeing, Swami parted the crowd and walked straight to where she was seated. And in all this excitement and commotion, she probably had lost the context of what was happening, why Swami was doing this. And Swami came straight, stood where she was seated, looked at her, and very simply, Swami said, "You called. You called, and I've come." How far is he? How distant is he? Do we need to shout? Do we need to scream? Do we need to go somewhere? He is as close as your mind's voice can reach, isn't it? But then there is a way in which probably he has to be called. How do we call him in such a way that he drops everything and comes running? How do we call him in such a way that he stops a drama and he comes to attend to you? As devotees, we all would be most happy to be equipped with that ability, right? I called and he came. What is it that we're missing out? Or what is it that we're still in the process of learning? I wouldn't say we have failed, but we are still picking the art. What is it that we need to learn? Going back to that interview I was talking to you about in the beginning, where Swami was talking to all of us before we were graduating, Swami showed the letter in his hand. He had collected a few letters before he came and sat there, and Swami showed us one of the letters, and Swami said, "Even this paper is God." No, we were just kind of showing that and said, "Even this paper is God. But you don't realize it. And because you don't realize it, you treat it like a paper." Similarly, everything in the world, everything around you is God, is Swami. But because you don't have that bhavam, you don't have that feeling that He is everywhere and He is everything, your experience is different. Swami then went on to say that if you are able to immerse yourself in this thought, that He is here, He is everywhere, He is everything, that will eventually become your experience. And there is no doubt about it. And Swami himself said, "But you might ask me, how long will it take to reach that state?" Swami said, everything takes time. Even a small child takes 9 months to be born. And having been born, it takes years to start walking, few more years to start speaking, and many more years before he or she becomes useful to the society, isn't it? Everything takes time, and even this will take time. But if we are able to immerse ourselves in that thought, that He is not far, He is near, He is not elsewhere, He is right with me, everything around me is Swami, that experience is only waiting to happen. Having said that, I think that's an experience which will eventually come. I'm not saying that that should be our goal right now. I should have that experience tomorrow. That is the larger experience that we're all working towards, and I'm sure at some point it will come. Talking about connecting with Swami, why do we really want to connect with Swami? When we talk about plugging to the source, connecting to Swami and having a heart-to-heart connection with him, name it however you want, why do we aspire to connect with Swami? And when we say connect, what are we connecting? Is it the physical connection? It is said that sparshanam papa vimochanam, if I'm right. Yes, touching Swami physically, when we have the opportunity to have his pad namaskar, to hold his hand, to touch the hem of his robe, it meant a lot. But is that the kind of connect we are talking about? Connecting physically with Swami? In that interview that Swami gave us, Swami made a very beautiful point. We were a class of about 100-odd students. So you could imagine we filled the bhajan hall that day, and probably 3 or 4 of us had the opportunity to sit around Swami's feet, who also grabbed the opportunity to perform Padaseva for Swami. So Swami looked at those boys and Swami said, see these boys now, they are pressing Swami's feet and they are feeling very happy about this opportunity, right? Who wouldn't be? Swami said they are having a lot of ananda because they're able to press Swami's feet. But imagine if they had to do this for somebody else, some other old person or someone to whom you have to offer this service. Would you be as happy? And Swami went on to say they are happy because they believe, they think that they are doing this to Swami. And Swami went on to say, isn't everything only in the mind? If you believe, if you think, if you are convinced, then the experience follows. So when we are saying connecting with Swami, we are not talking about connecting physically. In fact, even if you were to draw the analogy of gadgets, which we charge, which we plug into a power source, even technologically we are moving towards a wireless scenario, isn't it? We are even talking about over-the-air wireless charging, not even contact wireless charging. So even technologically, we're moving to a state where there is no physical connect or physical plugging in. So what is that connecting that we're talking about? What do we have to connect with Swami? Isn't it just the mind? Isn't this mind that needs to be connected with Swami? Because it is with this mind that we are constantly doing all our activities. It is this mind that we are taking it into the world for our everyday activity. It is the mind that loses peace of mind. It's the mind that loses it, isn't it? It's the mind that struggles to make decisions. It's the mind that gets clouded. So all the time when we talk about connecting to Swami, we are talking about connecting the mind to Swami and benefiting out of that connection in the everyday activities that we carry out. When I was doing this program on radio called Answering Booth, if some of you are regular listeners of Radio Sai, you might know I did get a good number of questions from Australia too, from listeners in Australia. So when I was doing this program, I got a very interesting question. I'm not too sure of the age of the boy, maybe 10-year-old or 11-year-old Balvika's child, who asked me this very beautiful and pertinent question. And even as I was answering him, I said that I thank him for asking this question, because as much as he needed the answer, so did I. And the question that he asked was very simple. When I was telling you, Swami said you should immerse your mind in Swami. You should immerse your mind in thoughts of Swami. This boy asked me this question. My teacher tells me that I should give my mind to Swami. How do I give my mind to Swami? What should I do to give my mind to Swami? When we talk about connecting our mind to Swami, when we talk about charging our mind with Swami, how do you give your mind to Swami? So the next few points that I'm going to make are the points that I made as an answer or in reply to that question, this beautiful question that this young boy had asked me. Swami would often say the mind is a bundle of thoughts, right? That's probably the most accurate description of the mind that you can come up with. It is a bundle of thoughts. So if you were to ask this question of how do I give this mind to Swami, the simplest answer that you can come up with is as many thoughts in a day are of Swami, that much you've given your mind to Swami, isn't it? As many times I'm able to think of Swami during the day, that much I have given my mind to Swami. When we were children, when we were growing up in an Indian city, I would often see my parents and elders do this, that when we are traveling by bus or when you're traveling by car, whenever there would be a temple, and being secular, it doesn't matter whether it's a temple or a mosque or a church, any place of worship, whenever you cross that, we had this habit, or I would see them do this, either just a silent namaskar or something like that. I don't know what that even means. So I would observe my elders do that, and as a child I wanted to do it myself too, but I also wanted to resolve in my mind, why do we do that? And if you've been to any of the South Indian cities like Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, you'll know that every corner would have a temple. If not a proper temple, there would be an enclosure in the wall and there will be a Ganesha idol there, or there would be a lingam there, right? So when you drive from one place to the other, you're constantly looking at these temples and you're offering your pranams. And the thought that it came to me, and because of which I think I also embraced that habit, is it's as simple as this. As many times as you're able to think of God in a day, it is good. As many thoughts in your mind can be replaced by thoughts of God, that much you benefit. Because as Swami would say, the mind is a monkey mind. It's in this thought at this moment, and next moment it's in some other thought. But the mind also has a limitation which you can make good use of, and that limitation is it can think only one thought at one moment. So if this one moment I'm able to think of Swami, there is no way I can go back to this moment and replace that thought of Swami. That moment has been fulfilled by me thinking of Swami. I have perfected that one moment because at that one moment my thoughts were on Swami. So one of the first things that we can do is as many times in a day can we think of Swami. And one of the best techniques for that is make thinking of Swami a habit. Attach this idea of recalling Swami with every activity that you do. As Swami would say, when you wake up, you pray. I was going through a discourse yesterday where Swami said, when you're having bath, chant the Gayatri mantra. It is like doing Abhishekam. Just before you eat your food, you say Brahmarpanam. You finish your food, thank Swami for the food. Before you go to sleep, pray to Swami. And every temple and every gopuram that you see, take it as a moment to remember Swami. So you make remembering Swami or connecting with Swami as a habit by constantly attaching it to different activities that you do. And that's one of the things that Swami taught us in the hostel, right? You wake up and there's a prayer. You go to the dining hall, there's a prayer. We have you have a match in the ground, we start with a prayer. We have a meeting, we start with a prayer. Then before we go to bed, we have a night prayer. So the best way, because you're going to have a life that is filled with the activity, and many times the activities are routine. So attach thinking of Swami to your routine. Make thinking of Swami a habit. In fact, interestingly, when we were talking to some of the old devotees who came to Swami in the 40s and 50s, they would say that the initial years, in Prasanthi Nilayam, before the Prasanthi Nilayam was even built, when they were all living in Pathamandir. There was no darshan time, there was no interviews, there were no prayer sessions, there were no bhajan times, because they were with Swami the whole day. They would wake up with Swami, they would dine with Swami, they would go to bed with Swami. They would spend the entire day with Swami, and the 3 months or 1 month they would spend in Puttaparthi was filled with Swami, right? So there was no routine in the ashram. And many sadhakas who came at that time were a bit disappointed that this place did not have the rigor of an ashram. But then Swami said, you don't need it, because the idea behind any of these things is to connect with God, and here I am, available to you every day, every moment of every day. And interestingly, all of these disciplines that we talk about, Omkaram, Suprabhatam, Bhajans, and night prayers, even in the ashram, all of these disciplines came when Swami started traveling and when there were devotees who would stay back in the ashram. Interestingly, Swami gave us these disciplines, these periodic prayers, so that we can stay focused on Swami, connected with Swami in the absence of that physical form. Living in that physical presence, you did not need any of these tools. Because as Swami said, in your mind, you have the idea that I am staying with Swami, I am with Swami. But when the mind is not convinced of that, I am not able to look at this camera I'm looking at and say that it is Swami. I'm not able to look at this setup here and say this table is Swami, that system is Swami. Because I am not in that frame of mind still. I need this tool of discipline. And that is why this periodically finding ways of connecting with Swami becomes very, very important, right? In fact, talking of gadgets, in fact, many of these tech reviewers will tell you that even when it comes to charging a mobile phone, a smartphone or a smart device, it is always better to follow a pattern. Instead of charging it whenever you need it or whenever it runs out of charge, they would say that follow a set pattern, either put it for charge every night or put it for charge for 1 hour every morning, and follow the same pattern, and that'll save your battery. I think same is the case with the mind too. If you discipline the mind will automatically think of Swami, and these will all become trigger points that allows you to think of Swami.
शिव स्वामी सत्य साई हरे भक्त जना संरक्षक भक्त जना संरक्षक परति महेश्वरा ओम जय जगदीश हरे शशिवदना श्रीकरा सर्वा गणपते स्वामी सर्वा गणपते आश्रित कल्पललिता आश्रित कल्पललिता आपण भार्गवा ओम जय जगदीश हरे मात पिता गुरुदेवं मर्यन्तयुमीवे स्वामी मर्यन्तयुमीवे नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नागेन्द्र शयना ओम जय जगदीश हरे ओंकार रूपा ओजस्वी ओ साई महादेवा सत्य साई महादेवा मंगलारति मंगलारति मंगल गिरिधारी ओम जय जगदीश हरे नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा ओम शांति 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 समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु शांति 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 जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय। भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि
प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्
समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु। समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु। समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु 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 ॐ शान्ति शान्ति